All right. Let's see. So we are now live. So what are we doing today? We are going to look for affordable housing rents in San Diego County today. And why I am doing this is because we had um, a viewer who wanted to check whether or not we can find a cash flowing property in an expensive market like San Diego County. So in San Diego County, what I'm first going to do is Google simply search San Diego County 2023 housing payment standards. When you look for housing payment standards, you're going to be able to find a couple of links here. Section 8 HGV vouchers. These are some of the later ones. But as I always teach you guys, if you go look up HUD FMR, you are able to go to the HUD website. When you go to the small area FMRs, look up 2024 small area FMRs. I want to select San Diego, California, and I want to select San Diego County. Let me see, I can shrink the screen. So for those of you that are watching on Instagram, it fits onto the screen. And boom, right here. What I'm looking for here is I'm trying to figure out, hey, where are the highest rents possible in San Diego County? And what areas are these rents in? And why might they be so high? What I'm trying to look for is some outsized opportunities where I can have a potential to find a cash flowing long-term rental for affordable housing here. Now, if you are able to see on my screen, there are a couple of zip codes that pop right out to mind, and I'm familiar with these zip codes because I live pretty close to them. And if you see here, let's see, let me move this over a little bit more so you guys can kind of see on Instagram. You're able to see that in 91915, the long-term rents for a 4-bedroom property is $6,680. $6,000, guys. Okay. So now you're trying to figure out, well, where is 91915 and what does this area actually look like? So when you go to Redfin, let's put in 91915. You're going to be able to see that in San Diego County, this is the east side of Chula Vista. Chula Vista over here on the east side, there's a ton of townhomes, a lot of gated communities, but most of these gated communities are relatively new. They have tons of amenities. Usually they have pools, clubhouses, basketball courts. It's a fantastic neighborhood, really, really great school system. And now if you try to understand, like, hey, is there anything that's going to be close to the 1% rule? Or if not, what might I be able to do? So I went ahead and also Googled some stuff for you guys on the, whoops, my screen's messing up a little bit. But if you're able to look at my screen right now, you are able to see that this is the San Diego Housing Commission. So if you are looking in particular zip codes, here's your rent for what your 2023 payment standards are. And this spreadsheet is going to give you the 5-bedroom and 6-bedroom, right? So this you can get usually from your local county or your local housing authority where they give you a further breakdown. So right now, I'm trying to figure out what are my rents for a 5-bedroom and 6-bedroom property in Chula Vista. And if you are able to see, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit for you guys here so you guys can take a quick look. 91915. Check this out. 91915, 3-bedroom property rents for $5,250. 6-bedroom property rents for $6,410. 5-bedroom property rents for $7,370. And a 6-bedroom property in Chula Vista, 91915 code, rents for $8,335. That is ridiculous. That is so high. Now, again, just to kind of clarify, the fair market rents, that is your ceiling rent. That just simply means that this is the ceiling by which HUD or your local housing authority deems is the ceiling rent for your property. Now, you're still going to have to pass a couple of tests. One of them is the rent reasonableness test, and the other is the rent affordability test. Is the rent affordable that you're charging to the tenant? And usually that's dependent on your renter's income. Now, rent reasonableness is really important because you want to understand whether or not the rent for your property that you're charging far exceeds what non-subsidized or non-assisted rentals are going for. The reason behind this is because they don't want the housing choice voucher program to be the drivers for why rents are so high, nor do they want landlords to be charging extra rent just because you're renting out to a housing choice voucher holder. So when we go in here and now we type in an address, so let's just find a property, right? So I am now here browsing on Redfin and I see, let's just look for some property. So there's a $795,000 home. That's great. Oh, this is interesting. 4 bedrooms. Let's load it up together. So this property is on the market at $795,000. Let's see if I can zoom out now just so you guys can see a little bit better on Instagram, especially for those folks on Instagram. This property is 2044 Luzon Lane, number 4. This looks like a townhome. This property is being listed at $795,000. 4 bedroom, 3.5 bath, 2461. This is why I think there's an opportunity, right? If you look at the square footage and at the rental number, it's like, hey, we just saw that a 6 bedroom property might be able to meet the 1% rule, but probably not a 4 bedroom. But at the same time, you're in Southern California in a very, very good area. So let's look at the schools. This is like 7 or 8 out of 10 schools. This is a very, very highly rated school system. And let's see, is there anything else? I'm trying to figure out if there's any other taxes in here. So I got some property taxes. I got homeowners insurance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into some photos and I want to quickly understand, hey, how does this house look? If you watched my latest podcast episode with Dr. Joe Azamoah, you will see that his benefit comes from adding the number of bedrooms in his property, particularly through basements in Washington, D.C., because it's a very expensive market, but you are able to charge a very, very high cash flow. So this is interesting. And you remember his 6 bedroom property was $6,200. Our 6 bedroom property here is $8,000. That means there is tremendous amount of opportunity and why folks might stick around in your property for a lot longer. So here's some of your amenities. Looks like a pretty decent neighborhood. I don't love the photos, to be honest. Like, I think the photos could have been taken better. But here's where I see an option. It's a 4 bedroom property right now, but you could potentially frame this into a legal bedroom. See this right here? You can put a wall right here. There's outlets already. There's egress for the window. And then you can probably just frame another door out here. And now you have, at the minimum, a legal 5 bedroom property. I don't see any other good angles without actually getting some videos on this property. So I can't say I can get 6 bedrooms in there. But at 2,400 square feet, that's a pretty good sizable property at $795,000. So what do we do next, right? We always get the FMR, and then we always go to affordablehousing.com, and we try to type in an address, and we try to type in a bedroom count because we're trying to figure out what the market rent looks like. Ooh, look at this. The market rent here says that the zip code is 5,261, and then it's 4,757 for a 5 bedroom property. Let's just try to take a look if there's a 6 bedroom property there. 4,600. 4,700. Okay, so this tells me that there's not a lot of 5 bedroom and there's not a lot of 6 bedroom properties in this area. So this is one of the situations where this would be my floor. My ceiling would be what I just saw in FMR, but I'm going to underwrite this using those assumptions. So let's kind of go ahead and let's pull up our spreadsheet. If you guys remember this from yesterday, we used this to analyze a deal in St. Louis. So we're just going to go ahead and just do a quick analysis right here, just trying to figure out whether or not there is any sort of possibilities of a deal here. So we are at $795,000. Okay. I would argue that normally this house looks like it's in pretty good shape. There's not much painting going on. There's some carpet. You could potentially remove that, but there's not much going on. So I'm going to assume I might just need to paint the whole place. So that's about $3 to $350 a square foot. So I'm going to go equals 350 times 350 times the square footage, which is 2461. And I'm using 350 a square foot because that's usually how much I paid for my rehabs in Scottsdale. So just using an assumption that it's also expensive market. And then if you want to Also add in some room conversion costs. We usually have seen room conversion costs, especially if you try to get a permit, at around like 10,000, 15,000. So I'm just going to add in those numbers there. Now, the rent. Let's look at the ceiling rent. So just remember, where do we get this rent from? We went to HUD FMR, but they only went to 4 bedrooms. Sometimes when you go into the city or the county, you can actually get a much more accurate number. So 9195 2023 small airfare market rent at a 5 bedroom property is 7,370. Okay, so I'm gonna put in 7,370. This is my ceiling rent, right? This is my best case scenario, and let's just see what happens. So if I assume that I had to put in just do 20% down, 20% down payment. Let's make sure that that equals this times this. That's $159,000. We have $29,000. We have let's go 2% closing costs. I don't think this is going to be 2.5, just given how high the prices are. And this is just based on my experience when I closed my property in San Diego. Property taxes, let's look at what we see here. Property tax usually 1.25%, but usually you can get that calculation right here. 828. Wow, hefty property taxes, right? But that's okay. Just plugging the numbers and you're trying to figure out where now there's 212 for homeowners insurance. What I usually do, I usually add a 20% premium to whatever the homeowners insurance is, just because I assume a rental property is going to be more expensive. Now, what we're missing here is a HOA fee. So I don't have any debt service. So I'm going to type in HOA fees. And this was $326. Okay. Rough math. $326. Okay. Property management, 8%, 4%. I'm gonna do. Look, this is a really, really nice neighborhood. I don't think people are moving out if they live here, because you have a pool, you have basketball courts, you have great schools. This is easily, if you follow Dr. Joe's model, this is easily one of those houses that people want to stay in there forever if they could. Because remember, what are they charging? If they are only making $1,000 a month, they only have to pay 30% what they make currently. So if they make $1,000, they would be paying $300 a month to rent a home that costs $7,300. If you were paying $300 to rent a $7,000 rent home, how long would you stay there? Think about it. So let's take a look at these number 326. We have this looks like a relatively newer home, so I want to put this at like 8%, because 10% might be a little bit high, to be quite honest with you, but this is still very conservative. You're putting aside $5,000. I don't even think it's that high, to be honest with you. $400, that's, you're leaving aside $5,000 for maintenance. $5,000 is easily enough to replace your HVAC. In another year, you probably enough to replace your roof. Just because of how high this rent is, this is why I'm lowering the maintenance or capex a little bit, because if you're using a $7,000 rent, that's really, really high. So sometimes your normal capex consumptions might not be the same, but setting aside $350 to $400 each month, this feels pretty fair to me. This feels really more than conservative. So let's look at the rents right now. So at $7,370, if I follow the current number and I assume it's a $23,000 rehab, this gets me to a 2.47% return. Now, this is what you have to decide now. Okay, I have now found an $800,000 home that will get me a family on housing choice voucher who will likely stay a long time, and the government will very, very likely be paying all of the rent, if not most of it. So here's the other strategy that people look for. If you can look for cash flow and you look for appreciation, then sometimes people specifically only want to buy for appreciation. Some folks' strategy might be, hey, if I can buy in a really expensive area where I know that property prices in this area could go up by like $50,000 or $100,000 in just a couple of years, I might be okay making just a couple $100 a month, because where the real wealth is built is not in cash flow, it's in appreciation. Now, this is one of those like class A neighborhoods, because all your areas are primarily gated communities, great schools, low crime. And I even pulled this up on Top Hat for you guys. So you can see like this is a gated neighborhood. There's some like parks right there. This is a beautiful neighborhood. This is safe. Like this is one of those gated communities, like brand new builds. Let's just go around the neighborhood. Look, they're still building development. See, these are all good signs. When you see developments kind of coming up and you see that you're in an area of growth, look at that. More condos going up. Man, this is the area that you want to be in. Like, this is when you see path of progress. And what do we have around here? You got a little shopping mall over here. Yeah, so this is a beautiful neighborhood. This is not one of those rundown neighborhoods that you would be afraid to live in or walk your kids at night. So now you are faced with a choice. I would write these scenarios down. So if I assume that the gross rent is 7,370, I would cash flow 409 a month, assuming the current assumptions, and that would equal to a 2.5% cash on cash return. Okay. Let's go to the next step down. If I assume this is 5,261, 5,261, 5261. This is now a negative 8.36 return. That is no bueno. 8.4%. And this is now a minus 1,400. Minus 1,400. And this is the bottom of the bottom at 4,757. This is what I think is my floor, because they're saying I can charge a max of 4,370, but this would definitely be reasonable because that's what everybody else is renting out at. 4,757. This is now a negative $1,800 return. Now, personally, I would never do that if I had to reach out and reach into my pocket to cover $1,800 of expenses every single month. Now, you can say like, oh, what if you don't have that many expenses or whatever, right? You should be setting aside some money every single month for maintenance. Like, that's not something I would cheap out on. So that's minus 11%. So this would be a good time for you to call your local housing authority and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a 4-bedroom home. I'm going to convert one of the bedrooms to a 5-bedroom property. And this is how I want to do it. So Mr. Person or Mrs. Person at the housing authority, do you think I can get $7,370 for rent for this property? I don't know. It's going to be comparable to your amenities, but you might have a really great property. You have an HOA, gated community, lots of amenities. You might be able to make that case that this property can justify $7,370 rent for this property. Now, if not, well, you might be struggling a little bit. So let me just type this in right here. So 91915. Let's look at the 4-bed and a 5-bed. Oops, close that out. A 4-bedroom. No, this is minimum 5. So let's go 6-bedroom, because we saw that we can always convert one property. Because if you can't convert the extra bedroom into a 5-bedroom, then you're really losing a lot of money on this property. So I wouldn't recommend that. So a 5-bedroom property in 91915 zip code in Chula Vista, 7370. Now, if I can get a 6-bedroom, because I haven't seen the property yet, because the pictures look kind of ugly, so I can't tell if there's room for it. 8,335. 8,335. So if I can get $8,335 for this property, and let's assume I'm converting 2 bedrooms, so double that $15,000 conversion to from $15,000 to $30,000, because right, you gotta justify your numbers. You can't just say, hey, I'm gonna make a 6-bedroom without adding any expenses. So you add more to the expenses, and now it's a $40,000 rehab, even though it's a really, really nice home already. Now all of a sudden you could be cash flowing almost 6.9%. You could be making $1,200 a month, assuming 20% down, 7.5% interest rate, and boom. Would you be okay making just $1,200 a month, but then you're also in a higher appreciating market? I know some investors would be. Some investors will probably be down for a deal like that. Because if you know San Diego and you know how high appreciating the California market is, and you still be able to find a cash flow, these opportunities aren't that common. So that could be one thing. So the other thing is, let's go back to a 5-bedroom property, because I want to determine my buy box now. So at $15,000 from the rehab to turn into a 5-bedroom property, that goes back to 7370, right? Well, we got that from HUD. Now all of a sudden, well, what price would this be a deal? So what if I find a home that is a 4-bedroom property, but I can convert it to a 5-bedroom? Now all of a sudden, I'm making $940 a month. Well, what if I get this at $650? Okay, now I'm making $1,000 cash flow. It's still not my 15% return, but you, your properties might go up by more than 10%. So if you think your property's going to go up by more than 10%, that's going to be a pretty significant return on your investment because you're still cash flowing $1,000 a month after being conservative with your numbers. So this is purely dependent on your strategy. If you believe that you want to go after appreciation and you have a stable job that you're not depending on the cash flow to quit your job or to pay your bills, this might be a very great way to fast track your wealth building because you are in a market that, hey, if this property that you bought for $700,000 goes up by 10%, that's an extra $70,000 a year. And you do $7,000 a year divided by 12, that's an extra $5,000 a month that you just made. $5,000 a month, that can cover someone's salary easily. You add this by $5,800, what's your real cash and cash return? Oh, sorry, it didn't add like that because it's another formula. But that's what I'm trying to say is you have to decide what your strategy is, what your risk tolerance is, and then now you determine what your buy boxes are. So now I'm gonna figure out like, hey, do I see other properties for $650,000 on Redfin? And I might just go look into it and say, I don't see anything. But cool. Hopefully this was helpful. The goal of this call was simply to walk you guys through the entire process. So what do we do? Right? We always do a little recap. We go to HUD FMR, Google that. Then we click on the small access to small area FMRs, which is small area fair market rents. We went to San Diego County and then we picked up a zip code and we just simply looked at, hey, areas where the rents are really, really high. It makes sense that the FMR was so high because of how high the purchase prices are, but it doesn't mean that you might not find another place that might be like, hey, there's $4,630 here in 91912. Where is that? And you can go in there and try to figure out like, hey, do the purchase prices make sense? So ideally, you're looking for properties around like 400 grand, 500 grand for a single family home that's a 4-bedroom property or it has some potential for you to add some bedroom counts. So that's how you would determine your market. It's a great area. And I forgot. I promised I would look up the crime score for you guys. Just so let's go into here. Let's go to map. Let's look up 91915 just so you guys can see that there is some validation of good crime or low crime or whatever. Let's go to prime, region, crime index. Crime index 300, national average is 100. It's interesting. 300 for the crime scores here, even though I've driven by this area. It's very suburban. So that kind of shows that as long as you're under 300 or more, this is going to be a pretty good area. These are very good schools. So sometimes they might just be aggregating some crime scores. So great area, great neighborhood. So now I can feel like, hey, my buy box really is for crime index to be 350 or under 400. That's like my bare minimum because there's going to be areas where it's pretty nice. So then we went to affordablehousing.com, owners, market rent estimator, type in address, type in a bedroom count, get the market rents right here. And when we plugged in the calculator, that's how we got the gross rents by $7,270, which was the ceiling. And then at the gross rents at $5,261, that yields a negative $1,400 cash flow. If you assume that you're going to get the market rents at $4,757, that's going to be a negative $1,851. But if you are able to get the maximum rents at $7,370 for a $650,000 home, and you will cash flow $1,200 in a high appreciating market, that might be a deal for some folks. So that I'm pretty excited about finding this area and this market. It's been a market that I've been closely looking and paying attention to. So, and for some reason there's a downturn, and now all of a sudden these 700 grand homes are 600 grand homes. Boom, there you go. You might be able to get a deal on a creative finance where you take over the existing loan subject to, and now all of a sudden you might be getting a loan at right around 6%, 5%, 4%, sometimes even 3%. You never know because more than half the mortgages out there right now are under 4%. So hopefully this was helpful for all of you guys. And if you guys found this helpful, please make sure you leave a comment. Let me know if this feedback was important. Let me know if this exercise is helpful to you guys. If you guys want to look at any other markets, let me know. The only reason I did Southern California was because we had a request from a viewer asked me to look at the Southern California market to see whether or not there's other areas that are of interest to us that might be potentially high cash flow, because we had Dr. Joe Asamoah on the podcast just the other day, and he was able to show how in Washington, D.C., There are 6 bedroom properties we're renting out at 6,200 for a 6 bedroom property. Here we saw that a 6 bedroom property in Chula Vista will rent out at $8,335, absolutely eclipsing what's going on there in Washington D.C. And if you know, Washington D.C. is a very expensive market. It's also high appreciation, right? Obviously, appreciation is not guaranteed, but if you believe in the market enough, that is a really, really good area for you to take a look at and understand whether or not there's any cash flowing opportunities. Because you can combine cash flow and appreciation, that's really you get the best of both worlds. So that was the underwriting exercise. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Kent_HE. And please make sure you leave a 5-star review for Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing Podcast on Apple Podcasts. Really, really appreciate any support you guys can give there. I do this, and I'm going to try to do this every single day because I'm trying to provide you guys with a massive, massive amounts of value. Today, we're just looking at Southern California, but hey, if there's another market you want us to take a look at together, happy to do this. This was not scripted at all. I just kind of jumped on, and at the request of somebody, I went ahead and did this. But we did start a free Facebook group. It is called Real Estate, Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. And the whole point behind that community that we are building together is that we want to establish a community of such go-givers, like kind-hearted folks that are dedicated towards giving back, helping others. And if you believe in affordable housing and you want to help others, this is a great, great investment strategy for you to consider as part of your investment approach. A lot of people tell me the generic word saying, hey, I just want to help people. Well, who do you want to help and how do you want to help them? I chose housing. And I believe housing is going to be the best way for you guys to change the life of a family that might not have been as fortunate as us, just given their environments or circumstances or whatever the story might be. But you are giving them an opportunity to thrive. You're giving their families and their children an opportunity to thrive. And the one of the biggest stoppers to taking action is fear. When you're scared and you don't know whether something is a deal, you don't take action. So this is why I come on here. I underwrite properties, and on the Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing Podcast, we bring on guests to share their stories about how they have dealt with issues when they have come up, so that when you guys come across those same issues in your investment journey, you can refer back to these guests on the podcast and think about, well, this is how this person dealt with that problem. Or this is how this person tried to prevent any issues from happening at their rental property because of how they screen their tenants. In every single exit strategy, there's always going to be risk. Chances are, even in Airbnbs, someone's going to trash your home or cause some damage to your property. In a long-term rental, your market rate tenant just has as much likelihood to trash your place as does an affordable housing rental. But coming from experience, I know that I'm doing this because I want to help families just like my mom, who was an immigrant, a hard worker, and just needed a solid launching spot for her family to grow up in. And this is why I do this. I hope you guys all make a lot of money in affordable housing so you guys can continue to pay it forward. I have nothing to sell you here. I'm simply sharing with you how I think, how I approach deals, how conservative I am, because I might not be the best underwriter. This might not be the way you would want to approach analyzing your deal. And I would love to hear your feedback and learn from you, because this is what this community is for. It's for all of us to learn together from one another so that we can de-risk the process as much as possible. What I'm going to have my virtual assistant do, her name is Pia. She will probably help me look at some North Carolina zip codes, get all the crime scores, and see where now we can get some updated 2024 numbers in there. That was a market I was looking heavily into, but maybe now there are some opportunities if the rents have increased just as much as we saw when we underwrote the St. Louis market yesterday, right? St. Louis market went up by nearly 20% of their rents, but their median home prices only went down. Their median home prices only went down by like 5%. So there is a opportunity here. 91915 market stats. So let me see if I can find 91915 just because we're looking here. So if you see 91915, let's see if I can pull this up right here so you guys able to take a look. So I'm looking at Redfin now, And I'm looking at now in 915 in the zip code, what has happened to the median home prices. And if you see that the median sales price of homes in 915 has gone down 1.6%, to me, that just means it has stabilized. Like it hasn't really gone up, hasn't really gone down. 1.6% is not that much. And there were 79 homes sold in August, down from 92. So very, very low transacting zip code right now. But if you saw how high it went up, man, that's a lot. So I only imagine the rents continue to grow up, but that does not necessarily mean the market rent's going to keep going up. So look out for the zip code. And if you guys have any more sort of questions, please make sure you let me know. Leave a question or comment in the YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to respond. If you'd like to join our free Facebook group, Affordable Housing Real Estate Investing, make sure you DM me your email at investwithkenthe. Again, full disclaimer, this was not investment, tax, or financial advice. This is not a solicitation to get any investments from you guys. I'm simply showing what I do on a daily basis by analyzing deals, and hopefully that makes it a little bit less scary for you guys to take on this adventure on your own. Cool. Thank you guys, and have an amazing Sunday.